Within the city of Ravnica, its necromancers literally rise to power by standing on their own dead swarms. Hello, and welcome to Adventure. Our cards can tell magical stories. Today, let's pretend the Gorgon Queen Vraska protects herself by having a shape-shifting body double. Her duplicitous world includes many urban and wild dangers. With a crown of venomous snakes, Vraska personifies her guild affiliation, the Golgari Swarm. Like her, we will play with the natural balances between life and death. For a more accurate look at the Gorgon Queen, please visit my friend Trapixium. Find a link to that lore in this video description. We begin building around Woodlurker Mimic, an inexpensive and older common rarity card. This choice dictates our future card selections. Including the shapeshifter, we have 29 black and green multicolored spells. Many overlooked or undervalued cards comprise this consistent and enjoyable strategy. Whenever we cast spells that are both black and green, our centerpiece becomes an impressive and unique threat. Woodlurker Mimic's hybrid mana cost makes itself both a black and green spell. One illustrator consistently represents all 5 dual-color shapeshifters from the Eventide set in 2008. A decade later, Guilds of Ravnica encourages new possibilities. Pitiless Gorgon advances our original story idea. Use either black or green mana and cast this death-touched creature. A cheap barrier of bones defends us. The surveil mechanic improves our next draw and is new to the Pauper format. Again, we seek to exploit our opponent's unfamiliarity with interesting cards. 2 black and green zombies. Trigger Woodlurker Mimic. We field hard-hitting creatures. Erstwhile Trooper can trample smaller blockers underfoot. The power and toughness of Rhizome Lurcher will often exceed its converted mana cost. The Undergrowth mechanic also appears exclusively in Guilds of Ravnica. As with Barrier of Bones, we find value by intentionally filling our own graveyard. I believe our previous 2 cards improve upon past Pauper examples. Some players may recognize either Vampire Hounds or Undergrowth Scavenger. Neither complements Woodlurker Mimic, but they do look similar to our earlier cards. Since 2011, head designer Mark Rosewater carefully considers new players' understanding of common rarity complexities. However, current sets indicate Wizards of the Coast keeps our beloved Pauper format relevant. A Stinking Troll embodies the cyclical life and death philosophies of the Golgari Guild. With its outdated ability to regenerate, the odious Trow can repeatedly block larger threats. We strategically use our own life totals to grow a putrid leech. In the early game, we have reliable ways to attack with 4 power on turn 3. The names of both cards distinctively describe the stench of a rotting bog. The instant speed at which we cast Grisly Salvage could help our Woodlurker Mimic in combat. Otherwise, this black and green spell further thins our deck while searching for our most desired option. Shambling Shell fills our graveyard too. Since this plant zombie requires no activation cost for its self-sacrifice, we have another combat trick. An option to place a +1/+1 counter on our creature makes our already tough army more dangerous. The Dredge ability ensures we can reliably trigger our shapeshifter while simultaneously adding to our discard pile. We continue sifting through our library. On our turn, Commune with the Gods allows us to find either a creature or an enchantment. We have two excellent examples of the latter. Strong archetypes already use Tortured Existence, and for good reason. With so many discarded creatures, this enchantment offers to reclaim at least some for a cost. Please note how we cannot also regenerate a creature we may sacrifice to Tortured Existence. Our main deck creature's inability to block any flyers remains our most glaring weakness. Spider Silk armor provides this often necessary defense. It makes our own creatures tougher too. A single copy is not only within budget, but also mindful of our propensity for indiscriminately filling the yard. We may otherwise miss an opportunity to draw and cast it. Lands provide mana exclusively. We have an even distribution of black and green spells. A single copy of Mortuary Mire rescues one important creature when this land enters the battlefield. Using hypergeometric calculations, we have a 99.8% chance of triggering Woodlurker Mimic with at least one additional multicolored spell by turn 3 on the play. Furthermore, we have an 89% cumulative probability of holding 3 or more such spells in the same time frame. Although this deck considers a longer game, we can press an attack when we see opportunities. While building this deck, I considered many other cards. Night Soil utilizes any graveyard to produce cheap saplings. I prefer this one, illustrated by Joseph Meehan, because of its simple vibrancy against broken wood. Two other cards utilize an interesting mechanic. Given how many permanents have both black and green mana symbols, either card would make sense. However, I discounted Aspect of Hydra because we cannot search it nor hold on to it while dumping cards into the graveyard. Additionally, I believe our high-value creatures suggest more combat-based victories without much more aid. For this reason, I cut copies of Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Its converted mana cost sometimes seems too difficult to cast. Did I make wise decisions? As always, I welcome constructive criticism. What cards might you have included? Please share a family-friendly comment. 15 cards in our sideboard reflect answers to familiar threats found in the Pauper metagame. We run a real risk of losing because we cannot draw more cards from our library. A single copy of the Centaur, Battlefield Scrounger, helps prevent this inevitability when facing control matchups that rip away our cards. With its threshold mechanic, It may also hit for 6 damage. Next, I choose 4 copies of Sylvok Replica for 2 reasons. Obviously, its versatility to destroy either artifacts or enchantments seems reasonable. We can also return it thanks to Tortured Existence. Many opponents play artifact-destroying spells too. Secondly, I notice how some mono-black control decks force excessive discards. Our shaman produces some stability against cards like Wrench Mind. This pairing of cards reminds us to respect our opponent's plays and perhaps exercise more patience. 2 more enchantments could replace Tortured Existence against particular opponents. Pestilence sidesteps untargetable, hexproof creatures. Many of our tough creatures will survive its damage. Currently, Trespasser's Curse feels undervalued in Pauper. I find it surprisingly effective against token strategies without needing to interact. Our last 2 sideboard options each fulfill specific roles. Golgari Brownscale also uses the dredge mechanic like our shambling shell. More importantly, a giant lizard's life-gaining claws helps negate frequent burning spells that target us. We remain susceptible to aerial attacks. The black and green trestle troll can block flyers. Its 4 toughness stands tall and defensively. What other sideboard options might you include? With our story and deck complete, let's consider cost. At the time of recording, Golgari Mimic stays on brand at less than 10 tickets. In paper, we happily compare against pre-constructed decks that have less consistency. Whenever possible, I encourage players and Wizards of the Coast to support local game stores. Guilds of Ravnica includes the black and green Golgari Guild. Therefore, I feel more confident now featuring Woodlurker Mimic and happily share it with you and my kids. Thank you for visiting my channel. It means a lot to my kids and to me. Consider subscribing for more content about the best MTG format. Please leave a family-friendly comment below. Until next time, this is Pappy Pauper, encouraging you to be uncommonly magical.